Where I struggle is how to even know what to set up.
50% of all the time that gets eaten up through just being a solopreneur or a small business owner. Accounting, bookkeeping, billing, marketing. Even if you're doing it by yourself, there are a lot of really cool tools out there that can help you automate certain things, like a lot of back office things.
How can I automate this? You said I can automate these. What does that even look like? Delegate. Who should I delegate these to?
If you can automate, delegate, or eliminate, you should, so that way you can focus on the things that you're uniquely qualified to do. When you start delegating, you want to give everything away. You want to just give everything. There's a real risk of handing off things that are incredibly important to the success of your small business. You got to be really careful for delegation's sake. Let's be honest, I'm only good at 3 things. I want to just focus on those 3 things and then hand off these other things to people who are not only better at them, but they probably come alive by doing them.
Hey friend, welcome to this week's episode of Distribution First. On this week's show, I have my buddy Jake on from VideoScale, and we are going to talk about all things automating, eliminating, and delegating tasks. If you are in content creation, if you're in marketing, or if you're just running a business, you have to be able to do these 3 things if you want to survive. And Jake is coming on to show us how to do that, because Jake doesn't just run VideoScale. He runs multiple businesses, and it's literally how he's able to survive. Now he's able to thrive in his businesses is by doing these 2 things. So Jake, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'd like to add, it's what also keeps me married and being a good dad. Because if I couldn't automate, delegate, and eliminate, I certainly wouldn't be running multiple things, but also stay married. So it keeps me sane. It keeps me in a good marriage and a present dad as well.
No, I love that. And I think at the end of the day, that's why I was happy to have you on and really talk about this, because I think part of the distribution first mindset and why I love it is the goal of simplifying down to what's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And really the reason why I want to do that is not to just simply grow at all costs. I think marketing and business, a lot of times it's just growth for growth's sake. We got to do all these things. It's just constant up and to the right. And I think when you're in your own business or when you're working for somebody else, it starts to realize why are we doing the things we're doing? What is the point of doing this? And a lot of times, unfortunately for folks, I've had this happen in my career. You got to learn the hard way. And so you burn yourself out, or you go into a point where you're just hit a wall and you're like, okay, there's got to be a better way, because what we are doing is not working.
Yeah, no, I think I had to learn it to figure it out too. And, that's definitely something you learn as either a solopreneur or a small business owner, where maybe you're leading a small team, is that you eventually, you start off with all the hats, and then you start making enough money where you say, well, I can hand off some of these things. And the more you go through that process, you start to realize, let's be honest, I'm only good at 3 things. Why don't I just focus on those 3 things and then hand off these other things to people who are not only better at them, but they probably come alive by doing them. I don't like writing text for my social posts, but I know some people who are really good at it and they love doing that. I am mediocre and I hate it. I could pay them, $20 an hour to do it for me. And so you kind of go through this over time, this process of, like we're going to talk about, of automating what you can, delegating what you need to, and then eliminating all the unnecessary things. But at this point, and I'm still going through the process, you're never done with it. More things get added to your plate. And so it's a kind of a continuous circle of having to go through that process. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this and see if we can help some people out.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start there. I think one of the things I have gotten really, I probably got into the idea of delegating when I started managing my first team. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's maybe some of that, when you're an individual contributor on a team or you're working for yourself, you kind of are just doing the work.
Yeah.
And it's not until you really either have some team members or get so much put on your plate and maybe get a little wiggle room, whether it's budget, headcount, et cetera, that you can start to even think about delegating. I know early in my career, delegating wasn't even delegating meant I wasn't valuable.
Yeah.
and so I think it's that shift. There is that shift though, when you go from being an IC to managing and leading team members, where delegation is not only necessary, it's not only something that's good, but it's necessary. It's required.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think even before delegation, you could start with automation. So if you're doing
Yeah.
it
So
by
let's
yourself,
start. Let's
yeah,
start
let's start
there.
with automation just because it does take money to delegate, right? You got to be able to afford to delegate to somebody, unless you're delegating to like your spouse or like a sibling or something. But, even if you're doing it by yourself, there are a lot of really cool tools out there that can help you automate certain things, like a lot of back office things, a lot of accounting, bookkeeping, billing, marketing, things like that can be automated through, you have Zapier, you've got a lot of built-in automations in Asana, like your project management tool. And there's a lot of like no code automation software out there that if you do Google search, you'll find 100 of them. But there's a lot of these things that you can just set up and then turn them on. And it's like that Ron Popeil. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Ron Popeil, but the set it and forget it, right? You put it in, you turn it on, walk away. And that's the beauty of the automation is you find those things that take up a lot of your time. Like for me at my old agency before I sold them, I was doing a lot of the building out the contracts, the agreements for our customers, and then I was sending it to them to sign it, and then I was filing that away, and then I was creating an invoice and sending it to them, and then I was doing all these things. I'm like, wait a minute, I know there's got to be something either through Zapier or whatever, where I can just once go through and connect the dots, connect all these things, and say, okay, as soon as a customer agrees to do business with us, I'm going to send them a form. The form is going to collect their, let's say it's their name, their address, their EIN, whatever the information is. As soon as they fill that out, I have an automation that then fills that into a form, like a contract. It then sends it to them to be signed. Once they sign it, it does these three things. It files it away in our Google Drive. It sends it to my partner or the team that says, hey, we got a new customer. And then it automatically creates an invoice for them, sends that back out as soon as they pay. So like you can build this sort of if then scenario, and now you don't have to do any billing, you don't have to do any contract work, you don't have to do any of these things, and you've already essentially delegated through automation, call it 20%, 50% of all the time that gets eaten up through just being a solopreneur or a small business owner. And so I think that's the first place to start is what I did was I wrote down, here are all the things that I do. And I even tracked the time of like, okay, I'm filling out, I'm creating an agreement. It took me 30 minutes to fill it out. All right, I tracked that for a week or two. And then I started aggregating it and saying, boy, man, I spent a lot. I was a COO at the time. I was like, holy smokes, I spent a lot of time doing billing, invoices, contracts. I was also doing social media posting and writing the text and all that and scheduling it and tracking it. And I started thinking, I was like, good Lord, for a COO of a small company, I think we had like a dozen people at the time on our team. I was like, I spend like 50% of my time doing stuff that a system or a process or a software can do. And I just started spending the time to automate them and finding creative ways to do that. And then it started trickling into, well, what else can we automate? What other jobs within our team, whether it's our creative director or our editors or our graphic designers, what can I automate for them? And it ended up creating this whole spider web effect where one trigger sets off all these different things that can take time away from all of our team.
So I love the idea of automating. I am awful at automating. I think for me, it's like, I love the idea. There's some things that I automate pretty well, but from the sounds of it, where I struggle is how to even know what to set up. So you talked about the planning side of it. How if anybody is working on a team or they're thinking about these things, like, or me even, like, what's your advice to, all right, you have a process that you're doing. Here's how you might be able to automate that. Because I think the world of automation, like, you can automate anything. You can automate so many things. Yeah. And it's like, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it started with writing that list of things I do. And I also highlighted, like, what don't I want to do? Like, part of my job was sending invoices. Like, I don't love that. It's boring. But someone's got to do it. And so I also highlight, like, what, if I could automate, if I could find a way, what would I like to? And for me back then, it was trying and testing. So I went to Zapier, or Zapier. I'm not even sure how you say it, but I went to them and I started just searching through all, like they do a pretty good job of writing out like the most used automations, and what's new and what you should be thinking about of how to automate your business. And so for me back then, it was reading a lot of articles, watching a lot of YouTube videos of automations, and going to places like Zapier and just scrolling through them. But today, in the world of AI with ChatGPT, it is so much easier to be able to identify what capabilities exist for automating your business. And so one of the things you can do with ChatGPT or any of the ones like that is just simply jump in there and ask like, hey, I'm a small business owner. We do this much money in revenue. We have this many teammates. Here's what we do. Here's our industry. Kind of give like a emphasis, an idea of what the business is, and then say, hey, ChatGPT, can you give me the top 10 ways a small business automates their business? And then also, can you tell me which softwares or platforms they use to do that? And once they send you back the information, you can scroll through and say like, hey, that actually could work. That doesn't really vibe with like what we do. Like ChatGPT maybe didn't understand what I was asking or what industry we're in. That wouldn't work. But then you just keep diving deeper and ask follow-up questions of, okay, chat, that number 1 and number 3 were really good. Can you refine it to maybe include this sort of thought or this sort of like, hey, I use QuickBooks. Like, can you tell me how I can automate QuickBooks with what you just suggested? And you keep refining your question to eventually it'll give you a play-by-play of the things you can automate, how step-by-step how to do it, what it'll cost, and then you just go ahead and execute it. And frankly, you can go to Upwork and find somebody who is skilled at automation, pay him or her $5, $10, $20 an hour, give them the instructions and say, can you just execute this for me? And from there, you're off to the races of what's possible. And I think once you start going down the path of automation, your brain starts connecting dots and saying, okay, well, what if I did this? Like new opportunities and options come up for what can be automated in your business. And it's from there, it's just like it's a rolling ball down the hill. It just picks up speed and gets bigger and bigger until you find that you can automate a fair amount of what you do.
No, that's really good. I think the ChatGPT stuff is, or whatever AI platform you're using, is super interesting to even pull those ideas of like to be able to understand sort of what I should even be doing. And I think the idea of pulling in those specific platforms that you're using or your team's using, I would imagine too, even if you're running a department at a company, I'm running accounting, I'm running marketing, like here's what we're trying to do, here are the tasks we do every single time we go to a trade show, we do X, Y, and Z. How can I automate these things in a more, succinct way versus every single time we do X, I'm manually doing this, this, and this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, maybe we have another conversation about AI down the road, but at this point, if you're not utilizing AI, and for us it's ChatGPT, then you're really missing out on the opportunity to speed up what you do. Like everything you just said there is exactly right. Like you can expedite a lot of these things, and it just takes a little bit of upfront work. And so, for instance, like we use ChatGPT, we've got the paid plan, and we've trained our GPT to know our business, to know our ICP, to know here's all of our marketing materials, here's some of our sales calls, like we've uploaded those, here's some of the scripts we use, like upload everything. We've trained it on our business, and now I can go in there and say, hey, what areas of video editing, not necessarily video editing itself, but video editing agency, can we start automating? That's something, maybe a new technique or a new technology that's come out. And we've used it to ask like, hey, who in our industry is doing unique things, or who would be a good affiliate partner? What industry are we not looking at to partner with? And what we found is AI is becoming a really unique and helpful, as I say, a business partner. Like it is not necessarily a tool. It definitely is, but it's a business partner where I can bounce ideas off of it. Like it knows everything about our business. It knows everything about our industry and our competitors. And now I can ask, his name is Mac, at least at VideoScale. Mac, what is so-and-so company doing that maybe I'm missing an opportunity on? And it's gonna bring back some really interesting questions and thoughts that I can then have a conversation with. And again, it's not running our business, but it's a hell of a good and cheap business partner to be able to bounce ideas off and help us run a business better. But again, that's AI. We can talk about that
Yeah.
some other time. But
Yeah.
that's a great way to start in automating your business and getting a lot of the work off your plate. But then there's a lot of stuff that you just can't. Like, you're not gonna be able to automate, in our case, video editing. We can't automate that. AI can do some video editing. Doesn't do a great job. It helps us do some things really well, but start to finish editing a video, it's just not the best option. So for that, we have to delegate. And so going to delegations where you can really find opportunities to hire really good people to do the things you don't want to do, or maybe isn't your superpower, or maybe that doesn't maybe it costs you less than what you should be paying yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things with automation, like I've been thinking about something about like running a podcast or running a show. Sometimes you have to do the hard work initially to understand even what you need, right? Like I need descriptions, I need this, I need that. But even just hearing you talk there's lots of things that are pretty regular, and every time you launch I record a podcast, this has to happen before. Every time after it launches, this has to happen. I'm just like, there's a lot that could be automated, even just in those things that are not currently, like send this to the Trello board and move this over here and add this here, like just all that type of stuff. That if I timed it out, probably takes anywhere from an hour to 3 hours, depending on the scope that I pull every episode.
Yeah. So I've heard people do this before. I don't do this because I still like to, for my podcast, I still like to have control over what's being said in the text and copy when I post. But I've heard people do this before. And so let's just kind of walk through an exercise of podcast with AI and automation. So technically what you could do after we're done with this episode is you could download everything from Riverside, download the transcript, and upload it to ChatGPT. Now, our ChatGPT, I've already trained it not only about VideoScale, but it knows me really well. Like, I've uploaded past podcasts, things I've written, like it knows my voice, it knows my cadence, it knows like I like to write things in a clever kind of witty way. And, but really like, not like super high up, like Harvard level, like text. Like I want it to be like 3rd to 5th grade level, right? So I can understand it and everybody else can understand it. So conceivably what you can do is upload the content, upload the transcript to ChatGPT, as well as the markers. Like I always, in a show like this, will mark like things that were really interesting. And I'll say, hey, Mac, I just did this episode with Justin. Here's the transcript. Here's my markers. Can you review my past episodes of our podcast? And can you suggest not only the headline from a YouTube video, but also using the structure I always use, the body for the headline for the YouTube video. Can you also give me timestamps using the markers I gave you to give me timestamps for my micro videos? And then can you write in my voice, text for those social media posts for those micros that resonates with my ICP, because they have the ICP already uploaded. And within a minute, you've got everything you need to then turn around and upload it to whatever, automation you have, and you're done essentially. Again, I don't do that because I like actually writing my own and feeling it and reviewing the content, but another way of automating through AI, a lot of the things.
I'm guessing there's a way too to even be able to automate, get the process moving for that of like the transcript is getting, I mean, I'm sure there's some way to figure it out about how to get that transcript in the right spot and then get that up to ChatGPT. So you just go into ChatGPT or you're getting some sort of starter output.
Yeah, they're actually a few months away from allowing you to be like, hey, ChatGPT, here, I just did this thing. Now here's what you need to do to go execute on my behalf. And I always screw up what it's called, but it's like, I'm not even trying to remember what it is, but there's a certain level, there's a certain type of AI that allows you to kind of do that. And so to my point earlier, it's like, then your brain starts thinking, well, what else is possible with this? Like, can I connect this and this and this? And so all I need to do is show up and be an expert and record. And so there's just a lot you can do with automations and AI that is really, really interesting. And again, it's not to replace you. It is, the AI is to replace, and the automation to replace some of the things you do, but it's really a great business partner on the AI side and time creator on the
Mm-hmm.
automation side.
Yeah, and to your point from the very beginning of why we want to create that time, it's like so we can do things we enjoy, so we can go on
Yeah.
vacation, so we can spend time with our families. Like this is why, or you see, like I always say, even in the distribution first world of like why you want to simplify is so you have more time to be strategic and
Yeah.
think about the things you want to actually create and be passionate about the content, not just churning out the next thing
Yeah.
that you have to do because it's on your list.
100%. Like we've got at VideoScale, we've got a number of like thought experts or thought leaders. So, like whether they're health and fitness or they're coaches or whatever, therapists. And to your exact point, it's like, okay, well, a lot of you guys are editing your own content yourself. And maybe that's a financial decision, or maybe it's, that's just the way you've done it and whatever. And for a lot of our customers, they recognize like, well, it takes me, let's say, an hour to do a couple micros a week. It's like, generally speaking, that's not a lot of time. Like that's totally fine. But if you really believe in the expertise that you have and your ability to impact people, and in some of these cases, change lives, right? That hour is actually pretty dang valuable. And that could be used, in a much better way. One of the ways I like to think about it is like, if you're a health and fitness coach, and you charge $250 an hour for your time to help improve someone's life, is that video worth $250? Like, you got to think about it on those scale. Like you could pay someone $50 to do it. $200 would actually be a better trade-off than $250. And so you got to think about it on that scale is like, how can I utilize this time more efficiently where it's like, well, I could do this and it's $500 an hour, or I could do that. Again, in my case, video editing, and it's $50 an hour. I think I should probably pivot over here to the 50 and just delegate that to somebody else. But you kind of have to go through that exercise of what's my time worth and what exercises are above that threshold in order to know what to delegate.
All right. We're touching on delegate. So we're going to officially move into the delegate column here, because I think that is the next step. So we've automated some of our tasks. We've started to at least figure out whether maybe we're delegating some things to the AI at this point. But now let's talk about delegation, Jake, and really walk me through sort of your process to figure out what the heck do I delegate? We touched on some of it on the video side, and then how to properly get those things delegated to where you are getting that ROI.
Yeah. And so you can listen to a dozen podcasts and probably get some similar answers, but there's going to be a lot of different like variances on how people approach this. But I think unanimously where people start is they think about what are maybe the three things that I am super good at. Like I should not be replaced in doing this thing. Like I think in your case, like you're excellent at being in front of the camera, training people, interviewing people, and educating them on how to do what you do. It's like you should never, abdicate that or delegate that responsibility to somebody else, right? That would be a poor delegation. So kind of identifying what are maybe the three things that you're really good at. And so in my case, it's I'm great at sales. I'm really good at engaging with people, and that happens in the sales process, but also like in understanding where our customers are coming from and knowing, do they have a place here? Can we actually help them? Can we serve them to our maximum capability, or are they better off going somewhere else? And I'm happy to pass them off to a competitor or another avenue if we're not a good fit for it. And then leading my team, like those are the three things that like I cannot hand off. Now there'll be other salespeople that come in and help, but being the person who is sort of the gatekeeper of VideoScale is really important. And I think I have that superpower that I don't want to get rid of. And so from there, then you've got your list of what else am I doing, right? And you start then crossing off the things that take up a larger proportion of your time and don't bring as much impact. So there's sort of this scale of like, well, this thing takes me 3 hours, but as it's a 10 on the level of like time, output, but a 1 on the like importance level. It's like, shoot, okay, well, I either have to eliminate that thing or delegate that thing. And so you just kind of start firing yourself from these positions and finding ways to offload that to people who are either better you at it, more inexpensive than you at it, or you just, again, eliminate it after that. But start with what your superpowers are, and then go from there. The one thing I'll say, which is a trap that I hear a lot of people fall into, and one that like it's such a slippery slope. I've wanted to go down it so many times, and I have to like keep myself from doing it, is when you start delegating, you want to like give everything away. Like you want to just like give everything. And there's a real risk of handing off things that are incredibly important to the success of your small business. You got to be really careful not to delegate it for delegation's sake. If you're going to delegate something that's like critical to your business, you've got to either find someone who's better than you, and if you can't, you got to keep that until you can. And so there's a real trap there just to delegate it because you can. But if it's tethered to the ultimate success of your business, be really careful about delegating that thing. Like for social media, it's like I can get rid of social media and posting like our stuff to anybody on our team. But the gatekeeping, it's like, ooh, man, this takes up a lot of time. But if we bring in the wrong customers, this could really screw up everything. I better think twice about delegating this. And if I do, it's got to be to the right person, and I got to train them really well. So that's one caveat or cautionary tale of don't delegate everything just because you can. Make sure it's an actual worthwhile and necessary thing.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things too that I've been thinking about with, as you were talking about delegation, I've just been thinking about in work in general and in the content and creating content and all of those things is like, where do you find the joy? And if you want this thing to like, whether you're running a business, whether you're running a team, whether you're doing, just doing content creation, like where in the process, not only like what is your superpower, but then what do you find joy? Like, where do you find the joy out of that? And then how do you, not that we're ever really able to hit the 100% mark on any of these things, right? But like, if I can tip the scales in my favor of I am working and getting more joy out of my week than I was previously, then I'm winning. And so that's another sort of like thing that I've thought about in the things that I'm doing, and a lot of those things of like, well, what am I finding joy? And then if you're not finding joy, and it's a task you have to do, that's when you get to have, I think, those hard conversations of like, is this a meet? Like, boy, I hate sales. Why? I don't know if I can outsource sales though. Like I kind of got to learn how to love it. Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great piece too, because I mean, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, why the hell are you even doing this to begin with? Like you gotta have some things.
It's a trap though. It is
100%. And there's gotta be some things that like bring you joy. So that way you show up every day and you remember why you do this thing. It's like, for me, I love sales. There's just a fun hunt to that. That's maybe not the right way of saying it, but like, there's a rush, there's a thrill of like closing a deal and trying to figure out like, what is it that really matters to you or irks you and like what's happening currently that I can help solve, and being like a trusted advisor to say, oh, I can totally help you with that. Or no, we're not the right person. Go over there to that person. So on the sales side, or like the gatekeeping, it's like I'm naturally like a protective person. Like I watch over, people in my life and my team and protect them. It's like, I want to be the gatekeeper, to make sure that the people who are coming in as a customer are a good fit. Not only can we serve them well, but they're going to be a great fit culturally into our ecosystem of our team and our other customers. And that brings me joy, is like being sort of that, like, that gatekeeper. If I didn't do those two things, I'd be like, I'm just doing this for money or something. I don't know that. Like at a certain point, money is not a motivator. Like it's very vapid and just doesn't last very long as a motivator. So conversations like this, or doing a sales call, or connecting with my team, those are the things that I'm like, I'm not delegating these. One, because I'm good at them, but they also bring me a lot of joy as well.
Yeah. Yeah. In the delegation space, I love the finding, like you mentioned, find your core
Hmm.
three, 3 to 5 things that you are great at and you love doing and you want to keep. And then now we're going to start to list out
Yeah.
all the, and I think what is interesting, even as I'm thinking about, okay, and I've gotten better. I have gotten better at this throughout my career, but I would say early on, it was like, if you would have taken a snapshot of those two lists,
Yeah.
it really is the opposite, right? Like
Yeah.
80% of my time is spent in the
Sure.
bottom list and
Yeah.
20% of my time is spent at the top list. And so it's that classic 80-20 rule of
Yeah.
what you're doing and what your impact is, of like how can you actually delegate those things? How can, and I would say, like, is in your world, is delegation and elimination, like, do those come together at that bottom list?
Yeah. Yeah. They sort of do. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I like, you kind of touched on it. Like I go through and like, I track my list of like things to do for the day, and I allocate in half-hour chunks of how I allocate it. And at the end of the week, I review and say, okay, what actually made an impact? And how do I do more of those things? Like, how do I get rid of the stuff that probably still needs to happen? But like, how do I focus most of my attention on those things that I'm my superpower, bring me joy, and actually have a lasting impact? That 80-20 rule. It's like 80% of your impact comes from 20% of your effort a lot of times, or 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. 80% of your drama comes from 20% of your customers. And so like there's just that's a great point that you bring up with the 80-20 rule is find out where your impact is and where you move the needle the most, and focus on that as well. But you're right, that's where the two kind of come together. And then that leads to elimination. Once you've gone through the automation of I've automated everything I can, I've delegated what I can and what I should, then you look at the rest of the list and you say, is this even really necessary? And if it is, you bring it back to delegation. And if it isn't, you just cut ties right there. Or you say, hey, maybe down the road, maybe when our team is, twice the size now, we'll bring this thing back. But you get to the elimination and you just you're cutting all the stuff that's unnecessary. It's just white noise. It's distracting. And it really doesn't move the needle at all. But the last thing I'll say on delegation, because elimination's completely easy, is that it's really easy. Another trap. It's really easy to delegate. It's really difficult to delegate well. And so you've got to be really cognizant and intentional about how you delegate and who you delegate to. So for instance, when I hired at VideoScale, when I hired my first account manager, she's excellent. She's fantastic. She essentially runs the business. Like you mentioned, I'm a real estate investor. I'm, a business investor. And so that's my career. I spend all my time on that. The VideoScale team runs the ship, and I do some sales calls and I, talk to the team, but it's minimal time. But that's because of being able to train people the right way. And so getting back to the story is, when it first started, I was doing all of the daily briefings. I was telling the editors, hey guys, here's what our customers are asking. Here's what you guys need to do. And here's the priority order for you guys to do it. And it took a lot of time. Like it would take an hour minimum a day. A lot of brain power though, of orchestrating things. I was looking as fast as I could to delegate that, because I wanted that off my plate so I could, focus on the more appropriate things and more important things. And I found the hard way that I cannot just hire somebody and say, Tag, you're it, get on it. It's like, no. They need to know about our business, about our customers, about, processes and systems that have worked, about best practices. So you got to be really intentional about how you delegate and creating a formula for success. Because here's what's going to happen. If you just delegate it without that, it's going to come back to you eventually. Because eventually they're going to screw it up, or you're going to lose customers, and then you're not going to be able to afford them, and that responsibility will come right back to you. And so take the time, or use AI to expedite it, and create the sort of that, hey, here's the keys to success for this role. Here are all the things that I've learned. Here's the step-by-step things of how to do this. Now let's review it and let's talk about it, and let's meet up on a regular basis to allow you to ask me questions about what you're learning as you take this thing over, and kind of walk side by side with them. There's this old my old pastor used to say this thing when he was training somebody, whether it was mopping the floor or being a new pastor. He said, uh, "I do, you watch. I do, you do. You do, I watch. You do, I walk away." And it's this sort of like 4-step process of like, how do you properly train somebody? So in the case of writing daily briefings, I would do them, and the person I hired would just sit and watch, and I would just think out loud, like, "Hey, I'm going to put this here. I know this person's going to submit a new project on Wednesday. They always do it on Wednesday, so we're going to move these things around." And then we would do it together, and then she would do it, and I would just sit and watch, and I would let her talk through what you're thinking. Let's talk about this. And I would challenge what she's thinking about. And then once I felt comfortable that like I could walk away and she could do this the same, if not better than me, then I would just walk away and let her just run with it. And so I say that as a cautionary tale of not only don't delegate things that are critical to your business right away, but make sure you're setting your people up for success. So that way it doesn't come back to you down the road. You're trying to create time. So take some time to then fully get it off your plate forever.
I love that. I think I feel like I have heard that before, and it's so true. I feel like where I personally would fall down, and probably have fallen down in the past in that, is skipping step 1 and 2, driving to 3, or completely driving to 4,
Yeah.
right? Like, like, you've got this now. If you need me, I'll review anything.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. And so
leadership by abdication,
which feels good in the moment, but anybody who's done that, or in particular, if you truly are training somebody on something new that they don't know, right? Like if they have experience and they've checked those boxes, a little bit less. But especially when you're training somebody on something new, or it's, oh, good, this is off my plate now. I'm done. Come and get me when the alarm bells go off and something is screaming loud. So I love that framework of being able to do that. I think it's helpful. And I think one of the things too that I would assume is it was unspoken, but is true for you in that scenario too, is by doing those 4 steps, whether you're bringing on a new person or just training somebody new on a new task, you are allowing it to be an actual process, and maybe having an honest conversation with them of like, "Hey, I really want you to write social media content for me. And I want to be hands off, but I know based on your skill set, it's going to take us a couple weeks to really get this right. We're going to have to take some upfront, but now after those couple weeks, you might be spending a lot of time in that, but then you're done." And I think that's the hardest part in all of these things 100%. When you're automating, eliminating, and delegating, is like, it's the teaching somebody how to fish scenario of like, I've got it, but you got to put the effort in to teach them how to fish. Otherwise there's nothing, it's going to come back.
It's so hard. It's like, apply that to exercise, apply that to healthy eating, apply it to any of these things. It's like the short term is so persuading that we're like, "Oh God, that sounds like such a mess. Like, I don't want to write processes. I don't want to write systems like that. I'll just keep doing it because I know it." And
you were already in my head earlier, Jake. That's what my brain was like. That's a lot of
work, and I can do it better than anybody else, and I might as well just keep it. And I think I run into this a lot with video editors, people who do their own content. It's like, I could just do it myself. It's like, you could, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. And the short-term mentality almost always trumps the long-term mentality. It's like, boy, this is going to take 10 hours of my time. I'm not going to do that. I'll just take 30 minutes and do it myself. Well, it's like, yeah, you resolve that initial problem of like, I just need to get this post out or whatever the thing is we're talking about. But I could have just spent 10 hours of investment and never have to do it again. And I'd like to believe VideoScale is going to be around for 20, 30 years. And so that 10 hours is actually a really freaking good investment of time. And so we have to kind of get out of ourselves and say, if this is actually important and I want to grow, then I actually have to take do this thing. And because I've already written the list of like what's impactful, I've already taken the top 3, which are my superpowers, bring me joy, and like are meaningful. And here are the rest. I'm a delegate. Well, I can probably tell you pretty well like what's the most important thing in here and rank order them. Well, if I'm taking 10 hours to delegate this really important task, like for me, it was creative briefs. Like our team needs to know what they're editing every day, and our customers need to be communicated with. That 10 hours was so worth it. I cannot tell you how much stress was pulled off my shoulders, how much less drama is in my life. Like my lead account manager is a saint. Like she runs the show. Like we call her like the mom and the captain of our team. Like she is everything. And if I just said screw it, I'll just do it myself. Ugh, there's just so much there. There's so much there that you just have to get past that mental block of I'll just do it myself, because that's a trap to staying small. It's a trap to being a one-man show, one-woman show forever. If you want that, I guess it's okay. But if you want to grow your business, and if you want to create time freedom, then you got to just bite the bullet and do it.
And that's what I was going to say. Even if you want to stay small, the delegating and automating and like that, to your point, that then frees you up to do whatever you want. Like, you can, it takes you out of scarcity mindset, which is a very difficult thing to get out of. But it's that idea of like, I've got to, it's a control thing. It's all of these type of things. And you're trying to grasp at and be able to control the situation. And it feels like as you start to let things go, that you are essentially letting go of the control, which you are in some ways, but you're allowing a lot more freedom to be able to either make other investments or try different things or just take some time off, all that type of stuff.
It takes money to create time freedom. And that's the simple truth of it. And sometimes you're using that from profits from the business. And sometimes it's just an investment. It's like, ooh, okay. Like I can promise you when I hired my first account manager, I could not afford it from the profits of the business. I just had to say, this is something for my mental health. This is something I need for the long-term, the longevity of our business. And I know I'm be hiring more account managers. Like if we're going to grow, we're going to have, 10 of these people, 20 of these people. So I have to do this eventually. There's no better time than now just to make the investment of time and money and get it off my plate and delegate it. And it is 10x from our investment easily. And now the great part is not only do we still have like the things that I laid out for her to learn from, well, now she can add to it. And now she can then be in charge of training the next one. And then they can then train the next one, and gets better and better along the way. And so I would say just do it. Do the Nike way, just do it and create the time freedom, because that's why we own businesses and do this at all, is just to create time freedom, to do the things we love, to be with people we love, to create memories. And no better way than to delegate the things you don't love to do.
Absolutely. Real quick to touch on eliminate, because like you said, it's pretty basic, but I think it can be almost more painful and scary than even of the other two things, is the idea of getting rid of things, especially things that you're used to doing. So how do you think about, like, how can you have an honest conversation with yourself? Maybe it's using AI.
Yeah, that's great.
See,
you're thinking about it.
you can. Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do this stuff. I do that all the time, right? But like, if you're thinking about it with your as a business partner, like to get some of that. I was gonna say get an objective robot take on what you should and shouldn't be doing. Because I think sometimes we're so tied into like, this is just how I've always done things. This is what it is. It's painful to get rid of stuff.
Oh, that's a great question. I once we whittle it down to like, okay, here's the remaining things. I reviewed again. Can I automate this? Can I delegate this? No. And then I go through it and say, well, what like are any of these things critical? Again, because I don't want to eliminate things that are super important. So if they're critical, bring them back to delegate or bring them back to automate. And then if they're not critical, but like, yeah, it's got an impact. Well, now let's gauge them on the level of impact compared to the level of output. Like, how much of my time is it taking, or how much time from somebody else on my team is it taking? Like, is this thing worth keeping around? And if it has a sizable impact, then there's maybe an argument to keep it around, or at least pausing it until you have more people on board you can eventually delegate it to. So I'm thinking of like, let's use social media content. That's not a great example, but just for this example, it's like, okay, social media content, super important to your business. It really might be. So maybe you should keep it. Or if it's not, like if you own a plumbing company, it's like, well, maybe not. I mean, most of your business through referrals anyways. You've been around for 20 years. Social media is not critical. You'd like to do it. But the amount of effort it takes is disproportionate to the amount of impact. So why don't we either eliminate doing it or wait until we actually have a bigger team that we can actually do it? Now, for VideoScale, content's in super important. So that is in the delegation phase. Like I don't want to do it. I'm not, doesn't bring me joy. Actually brings me the opposite of joy. It brings me a lot of rage sometimes to have to do this. And I'm not great at it. I'm good at this. I'm not good at like editing and all that stuff. So I've got somebody on my team who's excellent at it. Like she is a copywriter at heart. She's so good at it. She knows the heartbeat of our company. She knows our customers well. And it brings her joy to do it. And so for us, it's like, it's a no brainer, not eliminating that. Despite the amount of time it takes to do it, the impact is proportionate to the amount of, so I think you can think about it that way. Is like, what does this look like from a time it takes and the level of impact it has? And if it's low impact, just get rid of it or push pause for now.
I'm thinking through this as like as a content marketing person and a content marketing manager, how many things we do as marketers that if you took it through that tough lens of like, you know, we're going to X amount of trade shows. Well, okay, like how many of those trade shows, like these are expensive endeavors, we're doing this, or like whatever that thing is, we're hosting, you know, webinars, we're breaking our back to host webinars every single month. Okay, how many is it critical to the business? Are we actually and the answer might be like not yet. Or and so we're going to make that bet and invest in it, or the answer is no, it's not. And so we need to like pivot or switch, because I think one of the problems that I know working in content teams over the years that happens is we try to do everything. So it's like, I'm going to do social and newsletter and YouTube and a podcast and webinars and this and that. And it's like, holy smoke, like that's way too much. And to your point of like, that'd be great, but we gotta be able to scale it. The content's got to stay at a certain level. And so it's all of those discussions to have. And I think honestly, just being honest, like just being honest with yourself and your team and having those raw discussions of like, we can do this, but we cannot do everything.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the 80-20 rule of, I'm certain 80% of your traction on social media comes from 20% of your either posts or, you know, platforms. So like we learned early on for VideoScale, you know, a lot of our customers are agencies and content creators, and they happen to be more active on LinkedIn. It's more of an active platform, whereas like an Instagram or a Facebook are more passive. Like you're usually just scrolling to scroll. And so although like, yeah, I'd love to create uniquely for Instagram, and I'd love to create uniquely for TikTok and Facebook. It's like, well, most of our business and our traction comes from LinkedIn. So why don't we just index for LinkedIn, and we'll paste them to the other platforms. But I'm not creating for Facebook, not because I don't want to, but because it just doesn't have that. Like the amount of effort it would take for the amount of impact is not worth it. And we've pushed pause on it. So you really have to kind of use that 80-20 rule to figure out what's worth keeping and what's worth getting rid of.
No, that's super good, Jake. This has been super fun to go through and to think about. And I think even one of the things, you know, to kind of come full circle on it that I'm thinking about as I take this away from this conversation is how to get started on some of these things. One of the suggestions I would give, that I'm literally going to do this afternoon after we get after this call, is start to compile that list. And I think using AI to help you formulate some of these ideas is really interesting, of like giving it the background of your team. What are the main projects you tend to work on? What are the types of things you do? What are the things you're trying to accomplish at any given month or quarter? And then just simply ask, what out of these things, what are areas that are potential for me to automate,
there you go,
delegate, and eliminate? And then just kind of work through each one and say, all right, of these, how can I automate this? You said I can automate these. What does that even look like? Delegate. Who should I delegate these to? You know, I think that could be a really interesting exercise.
Yeah, I think that'd be and keep me updated how that goes, because I would love to hear that. And at the end of the day, it's like, as content creators, as experts in our industry, we need to create time to do what we're great at. And if you're bogging yourself down with all this other stuff, you're just doing a disservice not only to yourself and your family, but to the people you serve. And so if you can automate, delegate, or eliminate, you should, so that way you can focus on the things that you're uniquely qualified to do, right? Like, you do this thing so well, Justin. If you're spending your time balancing your checkbook it's like, you're doing a disservice to me, you're doing a disservice to all the people in your community. And so, yeah, I just want to encourage everybody, like, take an honest look about, like, what are the things you spend your time on, and get rid of it. Because at the end of the day, you're going to look back and say, I'm so glad I spent the max amount of time I could doing this thing I love to do to help people in my industry. And it's not going to be all the other crap you're doing to keep your business afloat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. Well, Jake, thanks for coming on, man. It was an absolute blast. And why don't you let people know where they can reach out if they're interested in VideoScale or what you got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can find us at VideoScale.co. You can go there. You can check out all of our the footage we've shot and edited. Get our pricing there. Anything at all. You can schedule some time to do a demo call. It'll be with me, because, again, I'm the gatekeeper. And then if you heard us through this podcast, Justin's got a specific promo code that I'm sure he'll put in the link below. Get you 25% off your first month. But yeah, if you're really interested in getting video editing off your plate so you can create more content and better content, we'd love to chat with you and see if we're a good fit for you.
Absolutely. Love it. I will throw the link down below. VideoScale's been editing all the stuff for the YouTube channel. Absolutely crushing it. Love the work. And it's saving me hours and hours every week. So,
Amen.
Absolutely love it. Thanks, Jake.
Appreciate it, Justin.